The campaign also paid more than $15 million for event production, including spending six figures to build a set for the Call Me Daddy podcast appearance, which wasn't actually filmed at the usual set. She wanted the podcast host to fly to her in Washington, D.C., and so they wanted to give the appearance that it was filmed in the usual set, and so they rebuilt a replica set in DC in order to do that podcast.
All right, folks, buckle up. We're diving into some mind-boggling campaign spending here. Kamala Harris and her team allegedly spent six figures recreating a podcast set just for her to appear on the Call Me Daddy podcast. Yeah, you heard that right. Instead of using the actual set, they built a replica in DC to make it look authentic. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Over 15 million from events and six-figure podcast setup for, well, let's just say a questionable result. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. Kamala Harris could have easily used earned media to get her message across for free. She could have taken her message to big platforms like Joe Rogan's podcast or even this very show. But did she? No. She chose to pour your donations into recreating a podcast set in DC. And this is just the start of a pattern of reckless spending. Let's break down exactly why this strategy doesn't just feel excessive, it's insulting to every voter who trusted her with their contributions.
Kamala Harris probably should have taken advantage of those very free opportunities for earned media where she could get her message out, especially on a huge platform like Joe Rogan's podcast.
Or ours.
Or ours. But, I mean, would she ever bother coming on our show?
So, yeah, look, guys, a quick thing on this, and then we'll get back to all the ways that she spent money like an idiot. Sorry, Kamala Harris Protection Industrial Complex. Sorry, we have to protect her ego.
Spent money like a brilliant person who put a
wasted
campaign
it all
in
and
debt.
lost. Okay, anyways, so look, guys, you can say I'm biased on this, perfectly fine. I don't know that there's any show or network on the planet that had more undecided voters. I read your comments every single day on air. So many of you were undecided. The way that Democrats work and Kamala Harris works, just this is for your edification, less about us, is the money that you were about to tell you they spent on ads. They're not really buying the ads as much as they're buying the earned media that comes with the ads.
This is where it truly gets cynical. Harris's campaign isn't about genuine outreach, it's about buying media compliance. They throw money at ads not just for exposure, but to secure favorable press. This isn't connecting with voters, it's controlling them. And instead of hearing diverse voices, we're stuck with a sanitized version pre-approved and paid for by her campaign dollars. Also, make sure down below you leave your opinion or thoughts. We always like to hear other people's thoughts and debate down below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, really helps out the channel. Let's get back into it.
What they're getting compliance, that's what they're buying from those outlets. The reason why they won't advertise on us, even though we have 27 million subscribers, 29 billion lifetime views, I mean, there's only two possible explanations. One is there's not a single person in the building that understands the internet at all. So they're like, oh, who's the biggest online network on the left? If you can't answer that question and you don't know that it's us, my God, you didn't do any of your homework, right? Yeah. 3 election cycles in a row that the morons who run the Democratic Party decided not to address progressives or populists or anyone who was undecided about Gaza or anything else. Instead, they gave it to the compliant press. How'd that work out for you?
Not so great, and it did lead to the campaign not only squandering over $1 billion, but also exiting the race with debt. So let's get to these details. So there's a new report out by Gabe Kaminsky from Washington Examiner. They actually looked at the disclosures and filings of the Harris campaign to see how much money they raised, where the money went, and boy, is it a doozy. So for instance, in mid-October, by the way, let me just be clear. Harris didn't run a full campaign. She ran a campaign for 3 months, raised a record amount of money, over $1 billion, and somehow spent that within 3 months. So in mid-October, the Harris campaign disclosed that it had spent over $880 million this election.
Let's talk about the numbers that should shock every American. $880 million, and she's out of the race with debt. This is why people feel detached from the political process. Harris' spending spree wasn't just irresponsible, it was an insult to every single donor. Compare this to Trump, who spent far less and made it work. For Harris, it's clear the focus was on burning cash rather than strategizing effectively.
And almost $526 million greater than the roughly $354 million that the Trump campaign had disclosed spending, according to a Washington Examiner analysis of federal filings. Much of the Harris campaign spending was allocated for digital media advertising, polling, and travel from state to state, including to a private jet company called Advanced Aviation. Now, between July 22nd and Election Day specifically, the campaign and its affiliated committees spent upwards of $654 million on advertising alone. And that included spending $450 a day to be shown on the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Cringe, definition of cringe.
Real
Jesus.
Persuasive. I mean, how are you not gonna vote for the lady on the Sphere?
They spent $450,000 a day on that ad. I mean, they're just burning your money.
Here we go again, $450,000 a day for an ad on the Sphere in Las Vegas. Let's get real. This is kind of cringeworthy. Nobody's voting based on seeing a politician's face on a flashy Sphere in Vegas. This is a prime example of being out of touch, opting for flashy visuals over real impactful messaging. Imagine what $450,000 a day could have done for community projects, education, healthcare, but instead it's all going to boost Harris's quote-unquote awareness, which she absolutely didn't need.
We need to construct a Sphere.
Jesus Christ, man. There's nothing in that Sphere. That's the problem.
Yeah, totally. So the Harris campaign also spent a six-figure sum to fly pro-Harris banners over 4 football games, NFL games, with teams from 6 out of the 7 swing states. Didn't appear to be very persuasive, but there was money spent beyond ads, right? So according to the filings obtained by the Washington Examiner, political, digital, and media consultants were also paid a handsome sum of money, $12.8 million by the Harris campaign. One vendor, Village Marketing Agency, received over $3.9 million and reportedly worked to recruit thousands of social media influencers to boost Harris online. Event production was also a staple spending area of the Harris campaign, which notably hosted a star-studded lineup of musicians from Lady Gaga to Katy Perry for an election eve rally. The campaign also paid more than $15 million for event production, including spending 6 figures to build a set for the Call Me Daddy podcast appearance, which wasn't actually filmed at the usual set. She wanted the podcast host to fly to her in Washington, D.C. And so they wanted to give the appearance that it was filmed in the usual set. And so they rebuilt a replica set in D.C. in order to do that podcast.
This is where it gets ridiculous. Why go through all of this trouble? The woman's already a household name. Spending 6 figures on set replicas doesn't add value. It just burns cash. Harris wants the host to come to her, bending over backward to stimulate the podcast environment, which begs the question, why not just appear on the local show or utilize an existing DC studio? It's almost like she's trying to avoid any real engagement that might push her out of her comfort zone. This is what we call style over substance at the taxpayer's expense.
So let's take a look at this video. This is confirmed by the podcast host, Alex Cooper.
So we rebuilt basically my studio in DC.
So here, if you want to look.
We brought the dad pad to Washington. That's crazy. This looks so similar. All right, guys, she's about to be here. Wish me luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. So
Jesus.
Real quick, the producers put up a live chat in the poll. I'm sorry, a live poll in the chat. Why did Harris not address progressive or populists like TYT? They're evil or they're incompetent. I don't know about evil. I'd say maybe spiteful, but incompetent is winning. Congratulations, Democrats. So now more details that are relevant here. So first of all, everybody raised and spent an enormous amount of money, and guess who's in charge? You'll never guess. It turns out it's billionaires. So first off, let me read you real quick Donald Trump's top donors. It's a surprising number one. Tim Mellon was number one at $172 million. He's the heir to an oil and banking fortune, which very likely means he's done nothing but try to preserve his wealth that he didn't earn his whole life. So he's probably in the tax deduction business and what he cares about in terms of his donations. Then you've got the second largest is Miriam Adelson at $137 million. And then Elon Musk is in the ballpark of $130 million. At least Donald Trump, to be fair, fairest show in America, spent their money well because he spent a lot less than Kamala Harris, but got the victory anyway. Whereas Kamala Harris took her donor money and lit it on fire, apparently. So she outspent him by $400 million in ads, just like Hillary Clinton spent almost twice as much as Donald Trump in ads and also failed. So why do they fail? Because they do things like the Sphere. Okay, now look, it's funny on its face, but if you need more convincing, you do an ad like that if people don't know your product or your brand or your candidate, right? And they go, oh, who's that on the Sphere? And that gets a lot of attention. And then people go, oh, that's actually the person running for the House or the Senate. And they learn about it. And then you go, okay, maybe it's a lot of money, but I get it and I understand it. And that candidate needed awareness. She does not need any awareness. She's running for president and is the vice president. That ad does nothing to convince someone to vote for her. That's an awareness ad, totally misplaced when they needed persuasion, especially in Las Vegas. So if they took the Sphere and instead of putting her like face on it like a piece of like propaganda out of a bad movie, and they put no taxes on tips or something along those lines, vote for Kamala Harris. Now that would be copying Trump's policy, which she did, but whatever she thought was her winning message that would persuade those voters in Las Vegas, okay, that makes more sense. See, that's my point, and part of the reason why the consultants don't mind burning your money on senseless ads and rebuilding a set for a couple $100,000, are you guys nuts?
Here's the hard truth. Consultants love campaigns like this because they get a cut from every bloated budget. Every replica set, every Sphere ad, every lavish event, it all lines their pockets, not yours. This isn't about winning hearts or persuading undecided voters. It's about spending money just to spend it. Kamala's campaign wasn't just tone deaf. It was a cash bonfire that only fueled the consultants' wallets.
Because they get a little taste of that money. They don't care as long as they're making their money. The consultants don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about the candidate. They care about getting a cut from all that money that was raised for her campaign. And look, I think the Sphere is a stupid idea, period, regardless of what's on the Sphere, okay? What would have been far smarter is if Kamala Harris learned from what Donald Trump has managed to do correctly, which is earned media, earned media, earned media. How many times do I have to say that? Going on Rogan's podcast was free. But look, we also understand what the issue was with Kamala Harris going on any podcast, really. She has difficulty speaking. I don't know what's going on with her. I don't know why she had that problem. She's awkward, she's uncomfortable in her own skin, and she had a difficult time making a case for herself.
In the end, I think one big thing that I've gathered is Harris's campaign strategy screams irresponsibility and detachment. It's a vanity project burning through millions, benefiting consultants and event planners more than any potential voter. Please be sure down below you leave your opinion and thoughts on this clip specifically. We always like to hear other people's thoughts. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, really helps out the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.